강게 로제 템니 텐저라 녀더라 남다라 살라웨 지니 등근 지신 세체 녀게 도가라 레반진 Kanda sembe tenjara mare mentoman dungala jesrebe Ronso ngon la bunche daranze yen la chunche yang den song Don dara chere do nyen mo nyen long len je chang do chol ze ching ma de men sel do ngala nyen go chen ye chen ze ra la de nam de ne dan chen sa ju taran se ne yuen den le zo kyala se tu ve gun ju chai ju dang ju nian gen de da le mun se le jan be yang la du om ara bajana de om ara bajana de om ara bajana de om ara bajana de Umara 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 bajana de Marabazana Omarabazana Zenden Jeji Kenraba Husere Tale Timon Mimbara Salane Kadai tenche shun lo do pa ye lo tre po be nang wa zalan do e so lo kang ce ta wa ro de pa ham chung se ti wa re de na ya Gombo jam yang ken ne ken me pa yang 동화를 쇼 년제 쳔베 최대님의 신 숭내면람 쳔봉 압자다 백가라 다랑아 쳔드 칠면도 뜸바 투제 쳔라 찬찬로 우젠솔롱 뱀메 동보레 ял외 남들랑신 현재주 쳔소베 제연된 소바르와 뱀만 중년 달르 베솔로의 종 루좀 도매 아리아 대왕당 인예 총랑 최제 장비샤 연대외 당샤제 외라소 견조 총인 남라 솔로와 대베 마외 생계 감계 릭비메 시드리 롱년 창신 군세장 잠비 번주로 두즈리 군이 바롱숨 최제 상보 잘주로의 제 강리 퇴가라른 제 닝베 굴로 연된 군중 가외 제찰로도 닝베 돈도 베베 나주로 바 롱첸 람점 샤블라 솔로완 데베 리동 잠발 신네 칠랍레 공베 롱네 보베 데레제롤 롱도 최준 장송아 왕주로 미밤 잠양 남절라 솔로완 데 오민 최제 인제 포장네 두숨 상제 군제 오니 랑심 최구롱 숨 돈제 바 자베 라메 샤블라 솔로완 데베 대양 조와 남게 타다냠베 셈제 탐제 동아르 준데 녜당 달데 톱자 난남에 바양다 바르 족비 상제제 고방 림보체라 고바르 기wo 대체도 담배체 대녀 센징 출신도 냠술랑와라 기wo 냠비 삼바 장주 초도 투게바 림보체 살다베고네 셈바르슈 강 셈바르 자위 최게 림바네 케베 출라 주빙고 셰자위 된저 디니 임바레 딜라양 케바르 자위네 주 최게 동시 소소 양다베 리바시 군이 여발레 당보 kebar chewi ne chu dela yang pungbo kam geche dendil ne dan nemen wangbo dus shu tum ne dine diring kapsuwa demba la kebas demba dela yang demba shi la dang ngeba dang ane demba shi ge chenye dang demba shi kola rimba shindu yongi yoba le dungal ge demba dang kunjung ge demba shu tum ne diring kopi demba kola shu yin.
At the beginning of class, please give rise to the precious attitude of bodhicitta, thinking, may all sentient beings who are as numerous as the sky is vast, attain a state that is free from suffering and the causes for suffering, and may I be able to establish all those sentient beings at the level of perfect and complete awakening, the state of a perfect Buddha. And in order to do so, may I now study and then put the teachings correctly into practice. With that kind of motivation, please engage in your studies. The text that we're studying in this class is the Gateway to Knowledge. and generally, the text is outlined by three main topics: the 10 topics of expertise, the 4 seals of Dharma, and the fourfold correct discrimination. Out of those, we're currently discussing the 10 topics of expertise, and we have already covered the aggregates, the elements, the sense sources, interdependence, the correct and incorrect, the faculties, and time. And today we will continue in our discussion of the 8th topic, which is the topic of the truth. After some general topic points regarding the Four Noble Truths, like the definitive number of Four Noble Truths, as well as their order and so on, we are now discussing each of the Noble Truths separately, and today we actually have reached the truth of cessation.
고비 덴바 네스 귤람기 top 강기 대신에 강도 녀몽남 때문에 미개월 제바 내내 코르비 균데 균치비 고방 딱바 담비 다니 기유 된도 녀르데 토바르 차위 초스 아이 고바 시와 갸놈바 네바르 중위 정신체 냥엘레 데바오스 다디데 고비 덴바게 뭐데 다타네말라 고비 덴바기 당 되는 고비 덴바이 에와 되는 연된 라소로 보내 레게도 다델라 당보 뭐디 갑라스 네 유람기 톱케스 고비 덴바니 유람기 톱케스 람덴 라테네 람덴데 냠술렘베 디 톱케스 톱 냠술렘바 톱 강게스 dine 대신의 강도사 지 내루함 랑신 코롱 최탐적의 내루함 최탐적의 랑신 코롱대 대신의 랑신 임바라 임바디 강도스 디 땡도라스 디 강도라스 dine 로브르비 녀모반남 땡도 매겨라 제바스 다 녀몽바 단다 야강라 둥알기 덴바 친사로와 둥알기 덴바라 친유기 직대는 낭주기 선제 덴도 탐제 로브르와 데니 군중기 덴바델라 레당 녀몽바 덴조 탐제 로브르바스 인주 넬루데 디신이 임바스 다 고비 덴바시와 데가르스는 최 탐제기 넬루 디신이 강임바 디 강둘라스 데니 로브르바기 녀몽바 남세 로브르 녀몽바 군중기 덴바당 동알기 덴바 덴조 녀몽바 남 덴도 미겨버라 제바 오딘데기랑 신지레스 고비 덴바데 아니 간데레 람나 도도양 코르비 윤제 윤체비 고방세 코르와이 유당 군중기 덴바 군중 레다 녀모마 콜라이다 약간 놈 된조데 규레스 때 제부데 동알 덴바 친유게 직된 직당 낭주기 선제 따디 제부레스 고비 덴바시와데 로부르기 코르비 윤제 덤제 윤체바스 데니데 고방 타르바 디 규르와메바 딱바 초도 규르와 담바 다데 단단하죠. 토리기 대화당 토리기 내된도 미닥바 깨지깨지 규비랑 신라와 다 고바데 톱송나 남양 아니 동갈레 라량 록메고 와임베 딱바스 되네 코르바게 사담이 고방도 내갑기 대화래 촉도 주라 담바데 말에 다 고비 덴바데 톱통나 담바스 아니 담바기랑 신지레 담비 당니스 담비랑 신스 딱바 담비랑 신스 고방 딱바 담비랑 신 당니스 강삼 기후 된적이 딱 된도 녀차스 단지 톱자라고 진 따디 저코암 소절라 락고와데 임베나 된도 녀차 토바레차비 초스 다 고비 덴바시면 온덴데 레스는 송하네 단도 되나 neluk 대신이 임바텔라 람 곰비 톱지 아니 로브르비기 아니 군중기 템바당 고비 템바 고비 차델라 달비 차델라 고비 템바 모인 송하네 다디 아니 고빠 디네 라솔
So we have we have now reached the 11th chapter, which is the chapter on the truth of cessation. And the chapter starts with paragraph 11.1 on page 140. Within suchness, the truth of cessation is to make all the disturbing emotions permanently not arise based on the power of a certain cause, namely the path. It is the state of having interrupted the cause and effect of samsara, the permanent and sublime nature, the supreme object of attainment pursued by beings. It is nirvana having the nature of cessation, tranquility, excellence, and true deliverance. So here we first see the essence of the truth of cessation, then the classifications, and then the qualities. And if we start now with the essence, then the truth of cessation is that which is attained by the power of the truth of the path, by the power of having practiced the path. The truth of cessation is that which is being attained. And it is also describing the true nature of phenomena that is free from the artificial aspects, the artificially arising or temporarily obscuring aspects of the truth of suffering and the truth of the path, the truth of origin. So here it says that the truth of cessation is the state of having interrupted the cause and effect of samsara. So the temporary obscurations of samsara, the causes for it and the effect, which we described in terms of the truth of origin, which is the cause. So karma and afflictive emotions, they are the cause for samsara. And also the truth of suffering, which is then the vessel, the world, and sentient beings, its content. So the truth of cessation is the interruption of the continuum of this cause and effect relationship. This cause and effect is the continuation, it's the interruption of the continuation of this cause and effect cycle of samsara. And so that's why we call it cessation, the cessation of the cause and effect of samsara, of karma and afflictive emotions being the cause, and then the world and sentient beings being the effect of those defiled karma and afflictive emotions. And it is also here named the permanent and sublime nature. So the truth of cessation is also the permanent and sublime nature. That means that it's when we look at the happiness of the higher realms, for example, then that happiness is actually subject to momentary change. The ultimate happiness of the cessation of samsara, of suffering and its causes, is unchanging. Once cause and effect of samsara have been eliminated, then that is a permanent happiness, the permanent bliss of Okay, sorry. That was the cessation of my Wi-Fi. So I hope now it works. Okay, so we also speak about it as the sublime nature here in terms of it being the the ultimate virtue, the ultimate undefiled virtue is being a cessation. And then it's the supreme object of attainment because it's the final, like that's the cessation is the final, the ultimate object that needs to be attained, pursued by beings. It's that which we need to obtain. In short, suchness is attained by correctly practicing the path, by adopting the truth of the path perfectly. And it's the cessation of the artificial stains of karma and afflictive emotions and their results, the world and sentient beings. So the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. And coming to an end of those, the cessation of suffering and the cessation of the causes for suffering is what we describe as cessation, as the truth of cessation.
Gopa, Shiva, Gyanomba, Nebara Jumi Rangshin Chen, Nyangela de Baos, and the Gopa de Namba de Kandayusana, Gopas, Yukunjungi Demba, Gopa, Lamgetoge, the Yukunjungi Demba de Gopa Latene, Jivu Dungalgi Demba de Gopas, the Gopa de la Odindes number years, Gopa de. Gyukunjung dang ju dungal gi demba nija gobas de tamade gobas sinstwa yende number shi tamado goba dang shiwas 출발게 왕기 되네 산년당 년년 sene mangbochi lepsa ya ganglao tenzo gobi dembi ngola ane di chamje shiwas ne gyanomba nyomong바 유 nyomong바 dewu dungal demba denzo tamje shiwa chasana yang 네, 이제 사믹 연된 푼숨 속바 다 연된 마 오라 렙기더라 데 고바텔라 연된 망보 여반데 온데 연된 탐지 갸놈 바스네 베 자게바 베치 이제 사샤다 마소나 멘토타 메타망보 링당 마소나 다 메타망보와 칼락다 마소나 베 칼락 자게바 라바나 신진이 갸놈 바스 고바텔라 연된 음식 망보 예스 갸놈 바스 네버 중이랑 신진스 네버 중과 시와드네 코르발라 라르 레망고와 게망고와 요군중게 덴바당 안티브 덴걸 덴바텐조 탐제 빵차나 데네 라르양 코르발라 양양양 게망고와 지 벳군 코르발레 타르직 타르네 다 라르양 자원이 레망고와 덴데게 된다 예스입니다 네버 중이 랑신 젠스 네 냥일레 데바오 냥엔스나 동알 라브레 동알레 데 송아레스 고비 덴바기 남바오 덴데 예스 송
And then it says here, it is nirvana, having the nature of cessation, tranquility, excellence, and true deliverance. And so these are the four characteristics of the truth of cessation. The first one being that it is the nature of cessation. That means that the cause is, so the truth of origin, karma and afflictive emotions have ceased. And based on that, then also the truth of suffering ceases. So the manifestation of the world and sentient beings. So the truth, the cessation of both the truth of origin and the truth of suffering is what is described here as cessation, as the quality of cessation. Then tranquility is the state of peace that is describing as one of the qualities of cessation, because usually we are disturbed by all these confusions of the root and subsidiary afflictive emotions. We have been talking about those a lot. So they disturb the mind, they disturb one from a peaceful state, and so their cessation has the quality of peacefulness or tranquility. Then the next quality is excellence. Not only is the truth of cessation characterized by peace due to the coming to an end of the root and subsidiary afflictive emotions, but also with that coming to an end of the disturbing emotions, so many different kinds of undefiled qualities are being perfected, are or will manifest. So there's a vast amount of qualities that we will actually talk about a little bit later. And this is likened to the beautiful flowers that grow in a park or a garden, or the elaborate food that can be eaten at a feast. So it just means that the excellence here, the quality of excellence, describes the manifold and very elaborate manifestation of qualities in that that cessation has. And then the last one is true deliverance. So when the causes for rebirth in samsara have been eliminated, then there's no need to be reborn in samsara anymore. The causes have ceased. And so one is truly delivered from the suffering of samsara with the cessation of the causes and effects of samsara. So one doesn't need to experience another rebirth within this cyclic existence. And all of this is also described as nirvana because it is a state that is beyond suffering. Samsara is the experience of suffering, and nirvana is then the transcendence of samsara, the transcendence of suffering.
The gobi tempa in number de ani gopa shiwa kanum ngebar jungwa os di shidi gobi tempe number shidi khanes nada di shibudres tan shen khazang zo kunjung tempe kapdela gyudang kunjung rapje ken shid rosonga ju kunjung rapje ken lawana shin chine dungal tempa kapla pena number de mitagpa dungalwa tongba dames no this demba re la ranso number der 용기도 하고 되네시네 단다디 아니 고비 demba 갑기 number 시 de 강강래라나 고파 시와 갸놈 내바르 중나오 소디 시드레스 송아래도 되는데네 델라 에나 코르이 동알은 아니 녀바르 시와 잠제 탱맹기 냥데 당스 코르와게 동알 때래 랑니 치부 아니 타르와르 치네 랑니 치부 코르와게 동알 때 녀바르 시와 잠제 아니 데 대과 멤베게 냥데암 고비 인생지여스 양 직대 개발 박바스 다들 개발도 박바스 데 랑니 치부 많이 봐 신스 심징게 된도라 아니 상제의 장주선 반남들 라렌데라 데 파파 대과침비 민네 bin양데스 심전 탐제기 상제 고반을 고바르자오 디치돌라 안에 퇴섬 검숨 되는 냠슬랑 와르 지오 냠비 된데 셰랍다 닝제 송도 텔베게 안에 네 셰랍 다음에 된 도발라 되니 코랄레 밀룽 안에 심제 탐지기 된도 산제 고방에 있으면 택명게 양들레 밀룽와 시바당 시와 촉지와 니람 탄니람 미네비 아니 양대 첨보 니소스
These four qualities here of cessation, tranquility, excellence, and true deliverance are the four qualities of the truth of cessation. Just in the same way as we have seen the qualities of the truth of origin yesterday, being the cause, origin, production, and condition for rebirth in samsara. And we also saw the the qualities of the truth of suffering to be impermanent, quality, empty, and devoid of self-entity. Those were the four qualities of the truth of suffering. So here, these four aspects of the nature of the truth of cessation, tranquility, excellence, and true deliverance. And sorry. Sorry. So with that, then we can move on to the divisions, the classifications of cessation. And there are actually two main ones that we need to consider here. When subdivided, there are two kinds of nirvana. The nirvana of the lesser vehicle, which is merely the complete pacification of samsaric suffering, and exalted non-dwelling nirvana of the greater vehicle. So we make a distinction here between the nirvana, the cessation of the fundamental vehicle, the Shravakayana, and that of the Mahayana. The cessation or nirvana of the Shravakayana refers to peace itself. That means that the practitioner achieves a state of pacification of the disturbing emotions, karma, and the sufferings of samsara just for themselves, and that is described as a state of peace, as the sphere of cessation of suffering and its causes. So that is the cessation as described in the Shravakayana, or the nirvana of the Shravakayana. And then we have a different kind of nirvana that is described in the Mahayana, that includes not only oneself, but a state of deliverance, or the nirvana for all sentient beings. And this is described particularly in the practice of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and is described as the non-abiding nirvana. What does non-abiding, or here translated as non-dwelling nirvana, refer to? It means that this kind of nirvana is free from the extremes of existence and peace. So as the Bodhisattva practices the unity of wisdom and compassion, the wisdom actually prevents them from being reborn within samsara, being stuck in samsara, falling into the extreme of existence in the three realms, while compassion makes one not fall into the extreme of peace. That would be the nirvana, the state of peace of the Shravakayana. So neither falling into the extreme of existence or peace, then the result, the nirvana of the Mahayana, is described as this non-abiding or non-dwelling nirvana.
Yang kopi kopa tela namrangi ewas namrangi ewa la yongsu mazopi kopa dang yongsu zopi kopa sine tinte yosungare ta yongsu mazopi kopa ne gyunshu so jibu tang
Take it in, sorry.
Lasso.
Yang sono
Tanda. Lasso. Kopa de la namrangi ewa la yongsu mazopi kopa dang yongsu zopi kopa se niyo se yongsu mazopi kopa sheba dene pena gyunshu chirihong chirimyong diwu tangpo sumji dupa ane pakpa loba namji kopa digi mingla yongsu mazopi kopa labyo sen tatu kapte la kansan na pangja 타다 빵 마심바 독자 타다 독 마심바 연된 타다 아니 용수 마조바 임베나 아니 용수 마조비 고바세 아니 베나 통람지 빵자 잠 빵나 아니 균슈 아니 양 도감지 곰방 된조 잠 빵나 양 치룡세 되네 야 디 땡들라 양 곰방 데비 곰방 탐제 방통나 치명와sen 어디 더 단다 약간라 빵자 빵술 된데 꼴라 깨지 망보실래메마 어디 갑라 망보시 숭상 어디 더 된저래 균쇼소 지구 당보 숨지 뒤바 로바 남지 고과되기 명 옛나양 디디 갑라 까톡 베나 통람지 빵자데 디디 빵 아니 디디 갑라 간르스나 이시제 게 디디 갑라 녀몽마도 고비 차네 고바스 lapchoki res ngane gyunshu digidela ina gobi demba res goba ngundu gyur res dana jen chiri ongdan chiri meong tenzu ki ranang suzu ki kato ki pangja de pang kato ki ta yonde kaya runga tendesine le bala tenne ta goba res ina yongsu ma zoba res ta yongsu zoba ne ta chumbi jebi diba milubi goba wos dide ta 제 자좀바 제 년도 자좀바 있나다도 다 대바침배 자좀바 있나도 자준비 되고 뒤바 된저 빵자 타다 세바 연된 타다 적송와 어디라 아니 이제 용수 조배 고바스 다디 밀로비 람다 렙사바 아다 온디라 rees and then ewa yang namrang dinde yore sungare kobao.
So then we find a number of different classifications of cessation here. The first is the division into complete cessation and incomplete cessation. The division of classifications of cessation. Incomplete cessation is the cessation of the learners, which comprises the first three results of stream enterer and so forth. Complete cessation is the cessation of no more learning, which constitutes the fruition of arhatship. So incomplete cessation means that partial cessation is attained, but not complete cessation of all the discards. So it is incomplete cessation are the different stages of a noble being in the Shravaka path described as the stream enterer, once returner, and non-returner. And so while the certain discards have been abandoned, others are not completely abandoned yet, so it's only partial. And likewise, with the elimination of some discards, then also comes the development of some, but not yet all realization, and also the qualities that develop. The qualities of cessation are not complete yet, but they are there, some are there. That means that for a stream enterer, for example, it means that the discards of the path of seeing have been abandoned, just the discards of the path of seeing. So they have become noble beings. It's a cessation of these discards of the path of seeing, but not yet the other discards. And when the discards of the path of cultivation and that relate to the desire realm have been abandoned, then that's the once returner. And when the discards of the higher realms of the path of cultivation are also being abandoned, then that's the non-returner. And so what we need to understand here is that at that time, the some discards, like the discards of the path of seeing, have actually been abandoned, and the cognitions, the wisdom that constitutes the abandonment, or that arises when these discards are being abandoned, has arisen. They're manifest, but there are some discards still left, and so the cessation is not complete at this stage. Complete cessation is only the case then when arhatship is attained, and that can apply to the arhatship of the Shravakayana or also the arhatship of the Mahayana, so Buddhahood as we understand it. And at that stage then all the discards have been completely abandoned and all the qualities have been perfectly developed. So this is also described then as the path of no more learning.
yang jikdim bi lam ki bangjai sabun nyamme be reshi kopa la dai kopa sen yang kopa de la yangger mingi namrang shenyang dai kopa dang ane dön tambe kopa sen ni yö su da dai kopa de ne jikdim bi lam ki se jikdim bi lam shena tanda samdin shi dang sukmi shi 어딘저기 명라 직딩비 람스는 숨기도와 직딩비 람게 아니 직딩비 람스는 직딩비 람 띵인젠데게 람게 띵인젠게디 방제 사변 냠 멤버 레시 고발라 다이 고바세 방자스나 아니 지그레디 감시랑 남진 숨기도와 감시랑 남진스나 베나 samden tangbo do kombikap de la o dokham ni nyomongba rakpa wo dokham ni tungalba wo dilaten na samden tangbo ni chokdo gyurba shine yoba dewa yoba wo sene yang samden niba dawla le gala sam dokham dang samden niba genjone yang nyomongba da cheba wo nyomong rakpa wo se yang samden niba ni chokdo gyurba wo dingyen zenda demba wo 네 초도 좀 대라 소바고네 탐 공마 베나 수미 감라 렘나 수감당 도감 된존네 지 락파 수당 제바 녀몽바다 제바오 수메바네 띵예 젠당 네 렉비 차오 딘데삼베고네 데네 직딩기 람기 아니 지 호마 된존라 락파 녀몽바다 제바 딘데스네 쩐니도 따싱 람 공마 된조라 윤된당 시와당 초도 주관이 주 따위고네세 되네 방자 사변 양메바르 제바스나 조 도감라 차과제나 다 도감라 차메니 센람네 도감기 방자지기도 아니 다나신 삼된 니발라 제나 페나 삼된 당보 되게 델라 아니 방자도 삼된 니바 델랑자도 지기도 온디도 인디가라 방제 사변 냠메바르 제바스디가라 이제 도감라 차바 라소가 기어데 방바르 제바 도감 인내 당 도감 다는 삼된 당보당 어된졸라 삼된 공마를 연된 삼된 공마 된졸라 되네 쩐니도 따싱세 방제 사변 냠충충도 메바르 아니 레시 고바스디가라 도감니 쩐단 제바오 라디가라 도감라 레시 지 가는 도차 라우당 도감라 도든도 얘기민도와 다는 신 삼된 이번이 레고 삼된 숨바 안에 쩐단 제바오 람나 양 삼된 당볼라 쩐니도 단 삼된 당볼라 차과 라우 얘기민도와 어디 때는 레시 고바래 어디래도 녀모모도 곤는 바체바 데라 안에 다밍 딱바 잠게 고바데스 고바 초도 주바 타르투바데 마레스 아니 탁비 셰랍기스 직딘레 데비타 탁비 셰랍 상메기 람라 데네 람가 딘돌라 데네로 셰랍기스 다메 똑비 람지 고네 다메 비된 람 똑베고네 아니 다음에 토픽이 남암 셰랍기스 방자 사변도 제가 땐도 방와데 다좀비 고만 톱송마 디민라 된담비 고바오 진에 셰자오 스티네스네 다이 고바나 된담비 고바스네 남랑디데 이게레 수마레도
Then we also have a different classification explained here. So a different way of breaking down cessation into symbolic cessation and ultimate cessation. And what is described here? Symbolic cessation is a temporary cessation due to the seeds of the discards having been weakened by the mundane paths. So how do we need to understand this? The symbolic cessation describes the temporary cessation, a temporary abandonment of the discards through the practice of the meditative absorptions, the meditative absorption of the dhyanas or the meditative absorptions of the formless realm. So these are worldly paths. These are not world transcending, right? They're mundane paths. The 4 dhyanas and the 4 meditative absorptions of the formless realm. And so with each higher stage of the of these meditative absorptions, the discards of the realms below it will be actually abandoned. And this is because when one achieves the first dhyana, then one thinks of the desire realm to be something coarse, something very afflicted, not peaceful, very disturbed, very coarse. And the dhyanas, in comparison to that, appear to be very peaceful and subtle and a state of tranquility. So when the higher realms are attained, then the lower ones, always those below, appear to be very coarse, and one doesn't want to be reborn there. One thinks of those things as really coarse and painful. And so that then applies not only to the not only to the first dhyana, but also throughout the dhyanas and the stages of the formless realms. If one reaches the second dhyana, for example, then the first dhyana is something that has been abandoned and that one doesn't have any attachment for. So the discards of the first dhyana have been abandoned. To reach the second dhyana, and one has no attachment to the first dhyana. One thinks of the first dhyana to be something painful and coarse compared to the state that one is in, and that at that point in the second dhyana, which is more subtle, more peaceful, and so on. And so that applies then throughout the dhyanas. If one is in the formless realm, then the form realms, the different stages of the form realm appear very coarse. And they have form, and there's a lot of disturbance, actually. So always the qualities of the higher paths are perceived as more supreme, while the lower, the qualities of the higher realms are supreme, experienced as supreme, while everything below one's own state is experienced as inferior, more painful, more disturbed. And so with the achievement of the first dhyana, then the discards of the desire realm have been temporarily abandoned. There's no cause for those disturbing emotions to arise again when one has reached that higher level of meditative concentration, at least temporarily, at least as long as one is in that on those levels of the form and formless realms. And with the abandonment of the discards of the first dhyana of the form realm, then one also takes up the qualities of the second of the second dhyana of the form realm. So again, the lower one is what one thinks is that to be abandoned, while the higher one is that to be adopted. And so at all points, the higher stages of meditative absorptions are being seen as qualities, while everything lower is perceived as faulty and what needs to be abandoned. And then because there is no desire for the experiences of the desire realm, for example, then also the disturbing emotions of the desire realm, so the discards of the desire realm cease to flare up, if they cease to be experienced or manifest while one is in the form or formless realm. And then the same always for the higher realms with the lower stages. And So they're not completely uprooted. It is possible that one falls back into the lower realms, into the desire realm or the form realm, even if one has been in the formless realm. So therefore, this is not a complete attainment of the cessation of these discards. It's just a temporary cessation, and that's why we call it the symbolic cessation. It's only the weakening of those seeds and the temporary suppressing of the defilements of each of the lower mundane paths. And then in comparison to that, we have ultimate cessation. Ultimate cessation is the permanent destruction of the seeds of the discards by means of discriminating knowledge of the path of a noble being. So we have seen that the symbolic cessation was defined by only temporarily suppressing the discards, and ultimate cessation, that means to actually getting completely rid of the discards with the roots and everything, so completely getting rid of them so they cannot arise again. That's ultimate cessation.
Yang gobi temba toba de mingla trachumba la gyo trachumba de la yang ena ni to shayos gen dan jeba dan gen meba sen gen meba ni sherabji nyomumba kunle number 12 trachumba os gen meba singinde kandarasna sherabji sedikala de pena mita tungal tongba thame bai ba shibi sherapki tiro benara lamgi temba shibi sherapki nyomo da lamgi temba shibi sherap godamboda ji mushi de maina ya da tratik chiwa do de lamtamje tar machimba godangbo lamla shene zunshimba dawgi sherapte 디다위 시랍지 녀모만 남 군네 다 디디 갑라 녀몽바 군레 넘버 12와 세디갈라 디디 갑토 델라 갑토 디기 녀모바 빵자 된조 빵 투게로와 디디 갑라 디디 이시지 넘버 12 이시지 제 되게라 온디 갑델라 안 다좀바 디기 명델라 아니 겐메바 다좀바스 겐단 제바스 니바데 겐단 제바스 제바데니 람 델라 망보 장바치네 베트콘 타르친 송와 된데기 다좀바 람 타르친 베트콘 타르친 스만 단기 엄마데 내가 저 람나 쫀심바 다오지레도와 디디 갑라 까톡게 녀몽마데 추스 빵데 랑기 ngogal데 녀몽마데 까톡이라 온데 갑라 다좀바 인사리 단다디 겐단 제바스는 넘버 타르바 게라게 연된 된조 톱네 냠죽레 짱 돌데스 데데 이제 베트코론 람 타르친 삼바다 이제 람라 양자르 가는 이제 셰랍 당 다음에 되는 가나 냠바르 쭉 먹어봐 베트코론 타르친 사와 데데지 다주마지레도와 냠죽레 짱 돌와데스 도르나 니게 차레 넘버 돌와 개와 뭐마 가와 개와래 개와 치마 강게 빵자 가져 빵 마탕 라소 받든데기 리바 숨당스 문제 다 캠베 리바 치메 다 캠베 리바 삭세기 문시기 리바스 문제 다 세디갈라 개와 섬진 디당 디 안에 랑당 섬진 신다신 개와 뭐마 강다 강도 개와 임받은 저 탐제 켄토겐기 딘데기 겐스는 아주 괜찮다 왔나 신진 다좀바지 문시에 라소바기 겐요 봐. 그러봐. 아니 뇽바르 쭉 마셔와 라소바 쭉 양양 가르스나 고발은 뇽바르 쭉 마고 바기 겐 연된 세메바 망보기 겐 진짜 제도와 아니 치미 타켄베기 겐 치마 타스는 개와 치마 강도 심진 강다 개와 치마 강도 깨괴위 르바 아니 삭세 문시 제기 르바 세나가 semje 강다 강사 강다 강기 빵자 가져요 빵도 통남 톱도 토미도 곰남 톱도 토미도 semjengi sem라 개와 가져요 여메 라소바 녀몽바 가져요 여메 라소 덴도 탐데 켄켄데기 셰바데기 민라 삭세 켄비 셰발라 그래서 어딘데기 겐남 연된데 여레스 다좀마직라 아니 뭐시 툭 나서 봐데 단 도르나도르 겐단 덴바다 겐 메바세 겐 여바 색인데 아니 뭐시당 아니 뭐식바 숨당 되네 넘버 타르바 계단 데 연데 빠도 메바데 문도 줄사교게 다좀 봐줘서라 데다 겐나 제비 다좀 봐. 겐 메바시와데 고네 슈네 득상 남라 슈크심바 다오지 연데 게임 하사로 왔던데 어딘데 인사를 근데 이 용기 조단된 바오 스티네 니 용기를 송아리 남랑나
Yena gen meba de yang papai kangsa chigirabe dene serate 좀더 계절 이해봐 chigirabe 얘는 다들 제일 합수 남도 거네
고당보다지 파바레 고당보 람라 슈팅인데서
파발레 담바바 그래서
근데 지 질와능라 녀도라 땐네 숨게도 녀도라 땐네 녀도스나 자직라브레 디우 탐제 톱로 토베기 지도라 고당보 자직 지와다 균슈당 칠홍당 나소바텐조
나소 So the attainment of cessation is then also identified as the achievement of arhatship. So the one who has attained cessation is an arhat. And there are two types of arhatship that can be identified. One is the unadorned arhat, or the unadorned arhatship, and the other one is then the adorned arhat. Paragraph 11.6 reads, there are two types of arhatship. Unadorned arhatship is the arhat that is totally liberated from all disturbing emotions by means of discriminating knowledge. And then we come to the second one after. So that means that the wisdom of the path, the truth of the path has arisen in that being. It means that the different characteristics of the truth have been realized, and the noble being that engages in that path is preparing to bring that realization to perfection and is preparing for perfecting all the qualities that go along with the cessation of the remaining discards. So the afflictive emotions have been, or some discards have been eliminated, and wisdom has arisen in that being. But because it's not yet brought to perfection, the unadorned arhat needs to re-engage in that realization again and again to cultivate it and bring it to perfection. In comparison to that, then, the adorned arhat is identified as the arhat that has completed the path, when the wisdom of realizing selflessness does not need to be developed again and again. It doesn't need to be re-engaged in again and again, because one has gained the complete freedom from the discards. So here we speak about the final result of the arhat that has gained the 8 emancipations, for example, and So here this is described in the text as adorned arhatship is, in addition to that, the mind liberated from the states of serenity by means of having attained the 8 miraculous emancipations. In short, such an arhat is liberated from both aspects, that of both disturbing emotions as well as serenity, and possesses the 3 types of insight and the 6 super knowledges. So the adorned arhat has then brought this realization to perfection and has been completely emancipated, completely free. That arhat is completely free from the different states of the disturbing emotions and so on. So they do not need to re-enter and re-engage, like with effort, re-engage in cessation. And so they have gained all the realization of the path, and they've abandoned all that needs to be abandoned, and they have in that way also gained the 3 insights and the 6 super knowledges. The 3 insights refer to the knowledge of former rebirth, so knowing where and when one has been reborn, all the history. Then the insight into death, transmigration, and rebirth describes the knowledge of karma and afflictive emotions, where one is going to be reborn, the insight to what happens after death. And then the insight into the exhaustion of defilements refers to the knowledge of the realization of other beings, so which defilements have been abandoned, which level is attained of oneself and other beings. So which level of wisdom has arisen, which defilements have been eliminated, so which discards have been discarded, and so on. So knowing all of that is then this 3rd insight. And then the 6 super knowledges are also present. So that describes really the perfection of the path of the particular vehicle. And then just to come back to the unadorned, I was clarifying whether this really refers to realized beings, because it was saying that it's preparatory. In the commentary it says it's a preparation, but the preparation is the preparation towards the perfection. So we speak about, I called it beginners noble beings, because they are working towards the perfection of realization and abandonment, whatever they might understand under that. And so they're preparing towards perfection. For the path towards arhatship, that refers to the stream enterer, the once returner, and the non-returners.
Yang de dachumba de la pungbo lakma dan chebi dachumba pungbo lakma da chebi gobi ingdang pungbo lakma mebi dachumba pungbo lakma mebi gobi ingso de ewa namrong de shachugre sungare de pungbo lakma da cheba sedegala semdege ta nyomongba 용조 군중 덴바데 용조 빵차나 양 아니 ngo마기 디고 동갈기 덴바 풍보데 수부데 단다 락마 예베나 딘데기 민라네 풍보 락마다 집이 다 좀바다 샘데다 뉴몽바 탐제 빵찬네 되네 자중바 톱찬나양 더 류부지 류데 류부디 류나야 류부데 되네 율 숙자체를 뉴몽베 왕돌라 마땅바 제네 되네 야보 숭네 쇼네 류부디 장바 요레 샘데 되네 자중바 고방 톱사죠 어딘데기 명라 풍보지 둥알기 됨바 풍보대 유베나 풍보를 한만다 제바스 양 학마 메바스 풍보대양 메바 되네 풍부 샘데 이시에게 인랑 곡차바 류양 메바 어딘데스네 딜라네 학마 메베기 레니수여스 여도.
So another way of classifying arhatship is then that of the arhat with a remainder and the arhat without remainder. There is a further division into two types, arhatship with a remainder of aggregates and arhatship without remainder. So here we speak about the arhats that have perfectly gained the cessation of the truth of origin. So karma and afflictive emotions have completely ceased in the mind stream of those beings, but there is still the body as the remainder of the truth of suffering present. So the being that has realized cessation, has realized arhatship, then even though the mind is free from karma and afflictive emotions of the truth of origin, from previously present karma and afflictive emotions, the body that is constituted of the 5 aggregates is still present. So they still have the remainder of the past. And so it's a subtle form where a remainder of the truth of suffering that is still there. That's the remainder. But realization of cessation in the mind stream of those beings is already complete in terms of the complete cessation of karma and afflictive emotions, the truth of origin. And so with that remainder of the truth of suffering, then they are the arhats with the remainder, while an arhat without remainder is then moved beyond even that, when even the aggregates that constitute the truth of suffering are have ceased, have come to an end, then that is the arhatship without remainder, when both the truth of origin and the truth of suffering have completely ceased, both of them.
And Gopa the tang Xiang Gopa Denis Duje case Dujeta Dungal Gitemba Dang Kunjung Gitemba Otenzo Duje case Gun Kwapa Zam Les Gun Luburgi Tima Kunjung Leda Nyumba Dang Dungal Demba Gapa Zam Shigla Gobi Demba Sene Ming Dashares and Tema Topi Bet Korong 단다 군중기 템바당 아니 디 동알기 템바델레 로스주와 셴당스 베트코는 셴지 요송나 셴나 마레스 계세 셴이 인송나 간스나 최전당 최인이 갈기레스 단다 마이바니 탈랭인가 단다 군중기 템바당 동알기 템바니데 최전제 아니 고비 템바도 최인이로와 단다 인주 다 베트코는 카가 셴지레람나 셴이 있나 셴당 라데 셴이 있나 아니 최전다 춘인이도 갈기레스 다 셴 말에 지바레 람나 오나 고비 템바대양 군중 템바당 동갈게 템바니도 탈레 어디네 디인디 갑라 다 셴나 말에 셴 민바스나 말레스 다 니가 레 람나 레레레게 쩐데 포기요레스 니가 말에스 람나 양 고비 템바승이지 문도 유르투에 고비 템바스 녀몽 탐제 잘네 이시에지 이제 셰바지 가산데 용셰 구라도 되니 문셰 쪽라 소바 되니 리퍼스나야 셰바 양지 캠비 이시지도와 디 여발라 때네 되니 니가 임바미바 가야 말했으나야 라토에 말했어 디 윤디 이면 속기 쪼바 녀와리 시베세 어디 쪼바 녀와리 시베스 디갑라 디게 가르스나 군중기 덴바당 동알게 덴바 디 최전대당 천년 고배 덴바니데 직당 현당 안에 니가당 니가 마임바당세 어딘데스네 쪼바 탐제당 탈레 대대요레스 디인디 갈랑아서 타직도 카카레 찍레 찍 말에서 어딘데스네 탁주투 말에서라 고 춘이 코롱델라 가르스나 이민 탐제다 달데라 쪼달 차데라 온디께서 시기도 한데 숭에데 쪼바 녀버시베나 디 민라 까고 사파오 스나라비요세 고바데 사포레스 가르스나 수수기로 된적이 찍레 니레 카가레 이민 가양 말에 디레다 디 말에서네게 추스 옵츠 생투기요 말에 디인데가 사파오 베타리 자초낭시 양초라 라바기 추생투기 말아 원디낭시 베셔션 사파오
Konso chikbares gayagi gemtsen karare. Kan kalsonso.
나서 그냥 갑갑 이제 동알 덴바당 군중 덴바데 최전 안에 고비 덴바데 춘이레스라고 오 덴데 있나 직전에 콘도 직바 있나로 덴데 삼나 어때다 직바 말했어 직바 인송나 오나 고비 덴바데 양 동알 덴바 임반이도 탈와 고비 덴바데 양 군중 덴바 레년 임반이도 탈와 오 덴데 이거라 다 지가 말에 타데 쪼바 탐제단 달와래 라고 계셔지도와
Las. Paragraph 11.8 then reads, cessation is the mere ceasing of the stream of formations. Therefore, it is profound because mental constructs such as it is something other or it is not something other have fully subsided. When we look at the nature of cessation, it's really the ceasing, the coming to an end, the stopping, the interruption of the stream of formations. That means that it's merely the ceasing of the continuation of the truth of suffering and the truth of origination. So those artificial constructs of the disturbing emotions, misinterpretation, and so forth, all the artificial and temporary experiences of the truth of suffering and cessation come to an end. But if we ask whether the truth of cessation would then be something completely different than the truth of suffering and the truth of cessation, we have to say no, because that would mean that the subject matter under analysis and its very nature would be opposing each other, would be different. So we take here the first two truths, the truth of suffering and the truth of origination, as that which we look at, the subject matter of our analysis. And cessation is really is the nature, the absence of all mental constructs is the nature of those. So we can't say that they're completely different things. But we can also not say that there would be not something different. We can't say that they're the same, because then that would mean that that cessation would be suffering and cessation would become an afflictive emotions. So that we can't say either. And so therefore, it's neither something else, something completely different, nor is it this something not different. And at the same time, then equally, it's not both or neither. Because if it were both the same and different, then both of the previously mentioned faults would occur. And if we would say it's neither the same nor different, then there would be no way for the different cognitions to arise with the cessation of the discards as we have seen it. So we have to acknowledge here a state that is free from all the extremes of being the same, different, both, or neither. And this state that is free from, like the cessation that is neither suffering and origin, nor is it something else than suffering and origin, nor is it both or neither, then is what is described here. So that allows the arising of the 9 cognitions that we have seen at the end of the last chapter, the wisdom, the primordial wisdom that knows the nature of the Four Noble Truths and so forth. And since it is free from all the extremes that we can conceptualize about what the relationship of cessation with the first 2 truths might be, it is actually really profound. It's not something that we or generally beings with an ordinary conceptual mind can really penetrate. We always grasp to these 4 extremes, to these 4 possibilities. Either needs to be same, or needs to be different, or needs to be both, or neither. And so it's the fact that cessation is beyond these 4 conceptual elaborations, and therefore beyond all conceptual elaborations, is not something that an ordinary being can easily grasp. And that's why the cessation is described as being very profound in the same way as it is deep like an ocean, which depth we cannot fathom.
Denes, Gobi Demba Denes, Kegane Sundan Dalwe, Dumache Dang, Dushile Galwe, Dudan Dalwa, and Tarwi Ne Dang, Dene Shinkam Ling Dinde Dang, Dindeleve Dene, Numobana Sobe, Sem Goa Meba, Soso Gurwa Dance, Dita Gobi Demba Den, Tamalwe, Shai Migdang, Hai Migdi, Joyule Debains, Tower Dilla, Gobi Demba de la Ne. 군중게 dembe 왕돌라 조연나니 딜라 고비 dembe 타에 칼레 카고요스 데네 군중게 dembe 왕도 마도나니 타에 레 하고용기레스 타카와세데갈라 군중게 dembe 레다 녀모 왕도나 타카와 타에 칼레 카고 고비 dembe나 데네 고비 dembe 녀모바기 요와 메바 고비 dembe라 데네 군중 레다 녀모바 된족에 타레 델 차용디갈라니 동갈 dembi 오늘은 치와 당 치포와 라스와 딘데 가양메스 동갈 탐제단 달와 대와 개와소 인노스.
It is unconditioned and free from the Maras. It is the abode, the sanctuary, the refuge, and so forth. It is difficult to behold, since it is beyond the reach of physical eyesight and divine eyesight. It is unmoving, beyond death and transmigration, and free from all suffering. It is blissful, virtuous, and so forth. So when we describe cessation, then it is unconditioned. That means it's not subject to the conditioning factors of arising, abiding, and ceasing. It's free from the Maras. It's free from all defilements. It is the abode, the sanctuary, the refuge, and so forth. That refers to the fact that it is that which needs to be attained, and where the workings of the truth of suffering and the truth of origination have come to an end. It is difficult to behold, since it is beyond the reach of the physical eyesight and divine eyesight. Actually, this means that since cessation is beyond the truth of origin and the truth of suffering, it is very difficult to see as long as we are subject to the truth of origin. So as long as we are disturbed by karma and afflictive emotions, then it is very difficult to wrap our heads around the idea of cessation. While if we have brought the origination, the truth of origination, to an end, so if we have eliminated afflictive emotions, then if we have discarded all the discards, and then it's easy to see, then we're not experiencing the rebirth within samsara due to karma and afflictive emotions. So the truth of suffering also ceases, and then it's easy to observe. But as long as we're subject to the worldly ways of the truth of origin, so as long as we're under the power of karma and afflictive emotions, it's very hard to apprehend. It is unmoving beyond death and transmigration. So as it's unmoving in terms of being unmoved by karma and afflictive emotions, when one is not thrown around in samsara by karma and afflictive emotions, one is beyond the workings of the truth of origination and the truth of suffering. That means one is not subject to death anymore. One is not subject to transmigration, to being reborn within samsara, and the experience of all the sufferings of the truth of suffering anymore.
네, 디 고파 덴바데 문도 제베게 다좀바 톱송나 디제 연den게 개발양 문제 내당 삭세당 아니 치포와 개와 숨당세 문마당 다다당 치마타 탐제라 몽와 서비스 메네 멜로베르바 숨당 뇽몽바다 뇽주기 디발레 돌와니 모셰 조 셰바 주 타르게네비 뇽주 구 남타르세 바르시는 아니 남바르타베 띵인전 숨 뇽몽바 메바 면네 셰바 멜루비 추주 사메지 풍봉아라 소베 연된 남당 망보당 덴바르제 용기레세 연den게 기바딘데 요산 단다드루 남당 장가 대조데 다티니마 샵니마라 살보제레레신데 용기레스 지마 아니 디캅라 따초기레 데 간다레 연된데 요 송아레 되네 다조 데티링 고비 덴바디 갑라 고비 덴바기 연된 단다랑 된 장가시망 빌렙서 연된 아니 고비 덴바기 남당 아니 고비 덴바기 다 남당암다 에와 저와 아니 고비 덴바기 체니스 어딘데 거네 디 고비 덴비 콜라 슈신송스.
So when attaining the arhatship of having realized cessation, the special qualities are as follows. So when arhatship, which is cessation, the truth of cessation here, is attained, then many special qualities arise. Since delusion about past, present, and future life has been dispelled by means of the cognitions of former rebirth, of the exhaustion of defilements, and of death and transmigration and rebirth, it should be understood that the Arhat is endowed with numerous categories of qualities. So because of the different insights that we have seen previously already, the three types of insight that we have seen in paragraph 11.6, then based on those, many qualities actually arise. They include the three, because of the liberation that has been attained previously of the adorned Arhat that was described in terms of the twofold freedom of disturbing motions as well as serenity, then these qualities here rise. The qualities of the three types of insights of no learning, the two liberations, the liberation from obscurations of disturbing emotions as well as the liberation from serenity, the 6 superknowledges, the 10 cognitions, the 9 serenities of successive abiding, the emancipations, the totalities and the subjugations, the 3 samadhis of the emancipations, freedom from disturbing emotions, intentional cognition, the 10 attributes of no learning, the 5 defiling aggregates, and so forth. So there are many different kinds of qualities that arise when one realizes cessation. We will go over each of these different qualities later on, so we will see it at that point when we talk about the paths. But so this is just to show here that many qualities are present when cessation is being attained. And so that then completes the discussion of the truth of cessation. We have seen that many qualities come along with them. So the entire list that I've just read out and more. And then we have also seen that there are different ways of talking about the different cessation, the different classifications and enumerations of cessation. And we have also spoken a little bit about the essence of cessation. That's what we did today. Okay, so let's recite the dedication and aspiration prayers.
Chambala Bhaven Chindara Kemba Dangundo Sambo Deyan Dechen De Da Gunji Cheso Dalo Chinkewa De Da Tamje Rando Ngondu Son Shekbe Jalwa Tamje Jingwa Gangla Chondo ngamba de da shen kebe zawa de gwen yang sangbo che chere rando ngo hara je su nam de ye tam je sen pa ni tom ne nye be chan nam pam je ni Genga na chen ba la me chong ba ye se be cho len ro wa la wa ra shong ke wa di ye ke wo gun su nam ye she cho zo xin su nam ye she le jong wa Tamba ye gu nye thomba ra sho lo chu son ro war chen ye nam do son chu lam do ro war chen ye nam do son lam chulumba sen war chen ye nam do son chulumba ye she so char war chen ye lam do solo Na so chela jayong.
Chela jayong.